beautiful people of the internet, how are you doing today? My name is Jackie, welcome back to my channel, and today in this video I am doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Now I saw this tag on the channels of both A Clockwork Reader and Pages and Pens, and I thought it was just a fun tag to update you guys on what I've read this year, so I decided to do it. No one tagged me, but you know, I get what I want. I tag myself in things. In all seriousness, I tagged their videos down below. They're really great if you want to watch them. And I decided to do this tag to update you guys on what I've read this year. I have read 15 books so far this year, and my goal for this year was to read at least 28 books because I read 27 last year. And I am currently 2 books ahead of schedule, so maybe I can get to 30 books this year, which would be really awesome, and I'm excited about that. So I'm going to share with you guys my favorite books of this year so far. So the first 2 questions in this tag I'm kind of going to lump together because the books that I chose for these 2 questions are in the same series, and these questions are the best book you've read so far in 2018 and the best sequel you've read so far in 2018. Now, I've only read 1 sequel all year, so this kind of was like the de facto choice, but I also really loved it. So my favorite books and my favorite sequel that I've read this year are the first 2 books in A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, A Game of Thrones, and A Clash of Kings. So, in case somehow you don't know what these books are about, these are the inspiration for the Game of Thrones television series. The A Song of Ice and Fire book series takes place in a fictional kingdom called Westeros and follows a series of wars for the throne, drama, intrigue, romance, murder, lots of different stuff going on here. And I love the Game of Thrones TV show, but I love the books even more. After reading these first 2 books, I just think they are phenomenal. I think they give you a really full picture of the whole story, lots of complex nuances, and I feel like I have a better appreciation for the characters reading these books now that I get to see the way their mind works and understand them better, because in a television show, you obviously can't see people's thoughts like you can in a book, and I feel like I have a better understanding of them as people and their personal motivations. And there are certain characters that I like a lot more in the books than I do in the TV show. I mean, I really love the characters in the TV show, but some of them I love even more now that I've read the books. And I've heard some people on BookTube say they think these books are too long and that they think George R.R. Martin's writing style is too detailed. But to me, I love that about the books because I love that they give so many details and that the story isn't rushed and that you get to see lots of different subplots and so to see how the story all comes together in the end. The next question is a new release this year that you haven't read yet but you want to, and for this one I'm going with My Plain Jane, which is the second book in the Lady Janies series, which is by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. I just read My Lady Jane, which is the first book in the series, and I thought it was wonderful. It's super hilarious, easy to get through, and just a really enjoyable, fun read. So I do want to read the sequel. The sequel is about Jane Eyre. It's a retelling of her story, and I haven't read Jane Eyre unless you want to count the Great Illustrated Classics version that I read in elementary school, but I don't think that counts. So I don't know if I will like it as much as My Lady Jane because I did know Lady Jane Grey's story going in and I was a big fan of that era and history. So I may not like My Plain Jane as much, but I really did enjoy the writing style in the first book. I thought the humor was great, and even though the books are written by 3 different authors, it blends together so seamlessly. You can't tell that it wasn't written by one person, which is what I really appreciate about their writing style. So I definitely want to read the next book in the series, and I hope that I will enjoy it at least half as much as I enjoyed My Lady Jane. The next question is your most anticipated release from the second half of the year, and for this I am going back to the A Song of Ice and Fire series and saying Fire and Blood Part 1 by George R.R. Martin. Now this is the first part of George R.R. Martin's complete history of House Targaryen, and what I really love about another thing, in addition to everything I already said, that I love about A Song of Ice and Fire is how detailed the history of this world is and how much in depth George has gone with it. And when I read the history of Westeros, it feels like I'm actually reading a real history for some country that exists. And I just really love that because I do love reading about history, especially the history of kings, queens. Like, I love medieval Britain, and I'm obsessed with those different eras and those dynastic wars. So I love that George has created this vast history that will probably never appear in the main series or in the Game of Thrones TV show, but he created it anyway, and it feels so authentic and true, and I just love learning more about this world that I love so much. So I definitely want to get Fire and Blood at some point and read it and learn more about the history of House Targaryen and all of these awesome dragon rider kings and queens. Up next is your biggest disappointment, and I have a bit of a controversial pick for this one because I know a lot of people loved this book, but I am going with One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. I wanted to love this book. I heard amazing things about it. I heard it got great reviews, and it is, you know, a mystery thriller, which is basically one of my favorite genres. I think it probably is my favorite genre. So I went into this book fully expecting to love it, and I think it was just an average book. I did not connect with any of the characters. I didn't root for the romance. I really just didn't feel connected with them, and I thought the twist ending was just meh. I know some people thought it was problematic, and I can see why they thought that. So I had such high hopes for this book. I thought it was going to be one of my favorite picks of the year, and I think I gave it like 3 stars. I thought it was just very average. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either, and I really wanted to love it, but I was not that impressed. It did not live up to my expectations. Sorry, guys. So next up is my biggest surprise, and for this one I am going with This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. I don't want to say too much about this book because it's going to appear in my May and June wrap-up, which will be up soon. I will say this book follows these 5 boys who are all best friends, and one day they go out hunting and one of them does not come back alive. So our main character, Kate, who is an intern at the DA's office, has to find out which one of the so-called River Point boys is the killer. I wasn't that excited to pick up this book in the beginning because I didn't think it had a super exciting sounding premise, but when I actually started to read it, there were plot twists in this book that I did not see coming, which is always important to me. And also, as far as young adult romances go, the romance in this book did not feel too cliche or insta-lovey. I actually didn't mind it. Usually, YA romances in books just make me roll my eyes with their clichéness and their love at first sight. But this one I actually didn't mind. I thought it was nice, and overall I really liked this book. I'll talk about it more in my May and June wrap-up. Up next is your favorite new author. Either it's their debut novel or they are just someone who is new to you. And for this one, I'm going with new to me because she's definitely not a debut author. She's been dead for many, many years, but I'm gonna go with Mary Shelley. I read Frankenstein this year, which I thought was just superb, and I am now obsessed with Mary Shelley as a person, just knowing what she's gone through in her life, and she just seems like such a badass woman. I have so much respect for her. I can't even think of like my favorite thing about her. I mean, after her husband died, she kept his heart like wrapped in one of his poems. It was just the most like emo hardcore thing I have ever heard. Also, she once helped out 2 of her lesbian friends by getting them fake IDs so they could live in France as man and wife without anyone judging them, which is just like amazing considering she was living in 19th century Britain where lots of people were homophobic. So I just love her. I think she's an amazing person. This book was just fantastic. I was really excited to find out they were making a Mary Shelley movie, but I don't think I will be watching it because I just have a problem with them casting Elle Fanning as Mary Shelley. I mean, she is talented, but she looks nothing like Mary Shelley, and she's not even British. So I'm kind of scratching my head at that casting choice. Also, I heard the movie sort of makes Mary look like a victim when she really wasn't. Like, Mary and her husband, Percy Shelley, actually had an open relationship, but in the movie, they depict Mary as being uncomfortable with him cheating on her when that was actually not the case and she believed in free love, among other things. Now, I'm actually really disappointed because Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones is actually a supporting character in the Mary Shelley movie, and I think she would have made an amazing, amazing Mary Shelley because one, she's such an amazing actress. Also, you know, she's actually British and she actually looks more like Mary Shelley than Elle Fanning does. So, kind of bitter. If I was in charge of casting that movie, she would have been my Mary Shelley. Maisie is the Mary Shelley I deserve. And yeah, I'm really salty about this movie. It has so much potential and they just made Mary Shelley look like a sad little victim and I'm not happy about it. Up next is your newest fictional crush, and for this one, I had to go with Edward from Sense and Sensibility because he is kind, generous, he's loyal, he puts others before himself, and the fact that he was played on screen by Hugh Grant and Dan Stevens totally did not influence my decision at all. At all! Up next is your newest favorite character, and I'm not sure I have a great answer for this one because there's no one book that I read this year that like the main character is just now going to be in my list of all-time favorites. Like I loved them so much. So I don't have a great answer for this question. I mean, if I'm allowed to use a Song of Ice and Fire characters, which I feel like is kind of cheating because I've already seen the Game of Thrones show, so they're not really like new favorite characters, but I will say I love Arya Stark so much more in the books. I mean, I love her on the show, but in the book, she is just like my absolute favorite character. I love her chapters the most, and I feel like the show did her a disservice a little bit with how she's written. Not to say that I don't think she's played well in the show. Like I said earlier in this video, I think Maisie Williams is a phenomenal actress, especially for someone so young. I just think the way she's written on the show is not as good as it is in the books. So in the books, she is my absolute favorite character. Up next is a book that made you cry, and to be completely honest, I have never cried reading a book. I guess I'm just stone cold. I don't really cry at fictional things. I don't think I've ever cried reading a book. I don't think I've ever cried watching a TV show. I think movies have made me cry a couple times, but not a lot. And so I never cried this year reading a book. However, the book that did make me feel all the feels was Exit West. This was a book that I actually read for my contemporary moral issues class at college. It follows these characters named Nadia and Saeed who are escaping from an unnamed Middle Eastern country and trying to start a new life away from the warfare in their country, which is just, you know, such a pressing issue right now. And reading about their journeys made me very emotional. I don't want to spoil the book, but there was this one part involving Saeed's father. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about, and that just like really hit me right in the heart. Like it was just so emotional, and yeah, that book just made me feel so many things. Up next is a book that made you happy, and for this one I am going with My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is the last book that I finished this year, and I just really enjoyed it. This book is a retelling of the story of Lady Jane Grey, and there is fantasy and comedy infused in this story, and I just thought it was so cute, quirky, funny. I really enjoyed it. It was a great summer read. I don't want to say too much about it because it's going to be in my May and June wrap-up video, but I really enjoyed it, and it was a nice break from the books I usually read because I usually read a lot of thrillers, and I've been reading more fantasy lately. I want to read more fantasy, and both of those can be very heavy, have a lot of death, a lot of murder, a lot of betrayal, so it was nice to read something that was more humorous, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was adorable. Up next is your favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year, and for this one, I don't have an answer because off the top of my head, I can't think of a single book to film adaptation that I watched this year. I mean, I rewatched the Hunger Games movies when they were on TV, but like I don't think that really counts because I've seen them before, so I'm just gonna say not applicable. The next question is my favorite booktube video that I filmed this year, and this one I have to go with the first sentence challenge video. I had so much fun filming this with the help of my friend Jessie. If you haven't watched that video, it's linked down below in the description. I just thought it was a really fun game for me to play, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by how I did in the first sentence challenge. So I just had the most fun making it out of all my videos. I liked that I had a friend help me out with it, and it was really fun. I also enjoyed the Burn, Rewrite, Reread challenge video that I made. Like, again, it was just another fun game that I really enjoyed playing. Up next is the most beautiful book you bought this year, and for this one I'm going to go with An Ember in the Ashes by Zaba Tahir. This book follows a girl named Leia, whose brother has been arrested for treason against the empire in which they live, and a boy named Elias, who is an unwilling soldier at the Empire's military academy. It is a YA fantasy novel, and I just think this cover is so gorgeous. I love the cover colors. I love the colors. And this is like kind of a weird comment, but I also kind of just love like the texture of this cover. Like, I like how it feels. I know that's like a really weird thing to say, but like it just feels really nice when you touch it. Like, I don't know. If you have a copy of this book, go touch it and tell me if you agree. So the final question in this tag is the books that you definitely want to get to this year before this year is over, and I am not great at following a TBR because if you watch my June TBR video, most of the books in that TBR ended up not reading in the month of June. But one series that I definitely want to start this year is the Harry Potter series, because I am basically the only person in the entire planet who hasn't read them, and at this point I feel left out and kind of ashamed. So I want to start Harry Potter. I know this is book 4, not book 1, but it is the only book in the series that I have at my home because somehow when my parents were splitting up their items in their divorce, my dad got all of the Harry Potter books, but my mom kept book 4, and I don't really know how that worked out, but yeah, so I'm holding up book 4 because it's the only one I have at this house, and the other ones are at my dad's house. But point is, I really want to join the Harry Potter party. I know it is a lot of people's favorite book of all time. You know, it's like one of the most famous book series in the history of ever, and I just feel so left out that I haven't read it. I want to read the books, I want to love them, I want to become a Potterhead. I also want to do a vlog when I'm reading Harry Potter for the first time, so you can look out for that. Also, please do not spoil me. I know some events that happen in Harry Potter because some events were spoiled for me, which is kind of why I never read the book series to begin with. So please do not go in the comments and be like, so-and-so dies or something like that, because then I will be sad. And please don't make me sad. That's really mean. So anyways, that is the mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book was that you have read so far this year, or what your least favorite book that you've read so far this year is. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye! See you next time!